Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Lonely Wrist. Today, every time I say this, we have a very special guest. I always kick off with this, but I truly mean it every single time. And we have arguably one of my favorite watch brands out there, crushing it, Jerome from Serica. Welcome, buddy.
Hi, Billy. Thanks for having me. Oh, sorry, phone.
That's
I know.
okay. You're a busy guy. Thanks for
Yeah,
coming on.
thanks. No, thanks for having me. Really, I appreciate. Any questions you might have, anything I could tell you about Serica watches, I'll be happy to share it with you and your
We
audience for sure.
we've got tons of stuff. Let's kick it off proper. Let's start with the origin story of Serica. What inspired you to start a watch brand? You and Gabriel.
It's rather simple, really. I mean, every brand has its own story. For us, without going back to our respective backgrounds, because what we did before obviously led us to creating Serica today. Because without meeting the proper people, without trying the proper watches on the wrist, you cannot create what we are creating right now. It's thousands of watches on the wrist, historical designs, studies, vintage pieces that fed us and fed me, my eye, because I do design the pieces. But if it had to be summed up into a very simple way, I'd say the true will to really give birth to what I consider to be the real tool watches. In a nutshell, you love watches, I do love watches, and I'm sure we will agree, not only you and I, but many other people around, that the golden age of watchmaking is not 2024. It was basically between the early 40s to the late 60s, mid 70s to be fair. And during that era, some people worked really well. They gave birth to what we still consider today to be among the most amazing pieces in watchmaking. And if we talk about tool watches, to me, these tool watches, and we're talking late 60s, obviously, or early 50s to late 60s, had something that has disappeared for a long time, and that is very, very hard to come across a modern piece. But I'm not talking just today, I'm talking about for the past 20 years. And that magic thing is blending the true characteristics of an instrument, meaning precision, meaning reliability, meaning water resistance, all of this, but combining it with a beautiful object of design, because beauty means everything and it makes our daily lives much better. So if it's not beautiful or relevant, or if it doesn't have a personality, obviously you will be less eager to crack a smile in the morning and put it on your wrist. So it was truly about having a new dive watch, field watch, GMT watch that does not try to look like or embody anything else but a Serica watch, and that blends the highest standards of performance with the beautiful finishing, with the most beautiful finishings, materials, and design. And we're struggling to combine all these together and give birth to very unique pieces. That was a core motivation and still is.
I wouldn't say you guys are struggling to do that because I was talking to some of my friends about you guys coming on the podcast, and yeah, so essentially they brought it to my attention that there is on Alibaba or DHgate or some of these
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Chinese websites copies, clones of
yeah.
Serica watches out there.
I know, but what can you do? The very first day, the very first morning when you hear and see about those, because you receive tons of messages. Hey, do you know about that? You know about that? It's not fun. It's not pleasant. Because basically the hard work and the heart we put into Serica watches every day is not open source. It's not open bar for those people to steal our work and make a quick buck out of it. But in another way, and friends of mine helped me realize that option one, I mean, on one, we can't do anything about it. Those guys hide in China, in Australia, wherever. And if I wanted to fight them, it would mean a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of money. And I'd rather spend these on building something than fighting something else. But it's also proof that we're creating something that stands for itself. when you do create a design and you have a very minimalistic branding approach like we do, I mean, you can't see Serica written big on the dial. And people are copying these and branding them as homage 5303 Serica watches. Then I was like, okay, I mean, Rolex has homages. Like, if it's not relevant design, people won't try to steal it anyway. So,
Yeah.
I try to relax with that kind of mindset.
Yeah, that's like the certification that you are going down in the design history books right there.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Tell, tell us, the 5303 is
Looking
one
good.
of one of my favorites. I currently now, thanks to Gabriel, I have the entire Serica collection.
You have one of each in your possession right
Yeah,
now. Is that
yes,
correct?
yes, for now. Um, and I'm looking forward to doing some content about them. You know, obviously by the time this podcast releases, you know, it will probably already be out.
Cool.
But I have enjoyed my time with the 5303. The field watch is amazing. The 5303, the GMT, um, is such a, I don't know how to describe it. You know, I get this experience that not a lot of people are going to get. Like, I don't know if all of your customers have all three watches.
No,
Probably not, right?
quite a few, but not all of them.
All right. Yeah, there you go. But somehow the designs. I'm trying to think of the best way I can describe this. I'm at a loss for words.
Sure.
But
Take your time.
but they're so integrated, but they're so different at the same time. Like it feels like a torch is being passed from piece to piece.
It's exactly that, because it's, when you build a brand from scratch, it's not playing watches and try to, it's the opposite of homage watches, because you try to express yourself with a language that you did not. Well, I did not invent the vocabulary, because the vocabulary to me is what has been passed down from previous generation of watch designers. I did not invent the black dial or the rotating bezel, did not invent the GMT complication,
Sure.
I did not invent any of this. But I'm trying to use those words and create my own language, my own poetry. It's, the watch design is something that is extremely fragile. We're working on a very small scale, and every tiniest hundreds of a millimeter that you change will affect the entire look and feel of the watch. So once you understand that, even if you use a vocabulary that dates from the 50s or the 60s, I mean, you can write something entirely different. It's, for example, what I did with the GMT, coming up with a lollipop GMT hand. It's never been done before, these 2 time 12 hours with the anti-meridian, post-meridian indexes, never been done before. It's those tiny little things that it's just like asking yourself, I read that not long ago about originality. Originality is not trying to be different. Originality is actually going back to the origin. And that's what it is about. You go back to the origin of the question that's been asked, and you answer this question with your own design language and approach. Building a GMT watch is not popping a Pepsi bezel on a diver's case. It's not playing with an orange hand or a red arrow hand. It's no, you go back to the origin. What's the origin of a GMT watch? It's displaying a second time zone with a day-night indicator. And you can do that any way you want, You have a plethora of hand shapes for hours, for minutes. And surprisingly, for GMT hands, most brands stuck with a Rolex approach. But that's precisely what it is, the Rolex approach. It's not for Serica to use, it's not for me to use. It's for me to create my own. So it's a very simple answer to that question. You read 12 hour on the dial, and 24 hours on the bezel. So if you want something that's easy to read, you need those hands to be different, because you don't read it with the same scale. It doesn't have to be red. It doesn't have to be orange. It doesn't even have to be a different color. It just has to be distinctive, slightly different. So I just changed the infill, which is not even superluminova because the 24-hour bezel does not glow. So having a hand that points to nothing in the dark doesn't make sense. And it's just by asking myself those questions that I found the most simplistic possible answers. And it gave birth to a watch that looks hopefully nothing like a 1675. Hopefully. Yeah,
I would say it's very distinctively Serica.
I hope so.
Um, Speaking on the design language, I mean, as a designer, I'm sure you're grounded by concepts and strategies. If you could
What kind?
describe,
Of what
uh,
kind? I don't get the question. Sorry. What
if
kind of
you
strategy?
if you could describe Serica's design philosophy,
Yeah.
if you could bring that to words, is it possible?
I tried not long ago working on describing the brand and what we're trying to achieve in the fewer possible words, because not everybody has a podcast of an hour podcast
Sure,
to hear what I have to say.
sure.
And so basically what we're trying to create, and that's why every single watch we're creating did evolve for the past 5 years. So as you know, everything now is automatic, obviously. It's Swiss, it's Chronometer certified, it's waterproof. That's for the specs, basically. And now for the design language, what we came up with is, if I have to tell you what a Serica watch is in one sentence, it's a singular and sophisticated waterproof Swiss chronometer. That's what it is. And that's what we build, basically. So in terms of design language, yeah, I would say singular as different and sophisticated, because we don't want something, we want to answer the question with design, but we want to answer the question in an elegant way. You know what I mean? It's just, like designers often say that the most simplistic answer is always the best. And I tend to agree. But at some point, when you have an answer that is simple, then you still need to give it birth. You still need to give that idea and that answer a tangible form. And there are many different ways to do that. And we try to make sure that the Serica ways have always that little extra knack of, ooh, I did not think about that before, but it's classy touch.
Yeah. Let's talk about, first of all, we can go through the lineup, right? You have a
Sure.
very simple collection. Congratulations on the new 6190s.
Thanks.
I think it was.
You have one of those in your possession?
I do not. I have
Okay.
the. Well, actually, I have the California.
Oh, I would have very surprised because we have very few of those. Even I don't have any.
That says a lot. Yeah. I saw at Wind Up, Gabriel had showed me the Polar
Yeah.
of the 6190. I think he had the Polar or the Storm Gray or something with him in his
He had one
possession.
of each, I think. Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, this is the new 6190. This is where we're headed." And I was like, "Man, And we featured the 6190 California in our like best of show article,
Thank you very much.
which was an impressive, because that was the first time I'd ever seen your brand.
Right.
And yeah, you have a very simple collection. You got the 6190, the field chronometer. You got the 5303, the diving chronometer,
Yeah.
the 8315, the travel chronometer. I don't want to push you, but I'm sure you're going to expand the lineup soon.
It's yeah. The thing there are many reasons to that. It's I always build everything one step at a time. I mean, rushing, especially in whatever you do, but especially in watchmaking, especially in design, it takes time. It needs time to grow up. When you bring, especially in watchmaking, when you bring new designs to the table, and we experience that because what we do is different. So it needs time to be, I don't know, to be understood, to be accepted, to be. If we go about designing many different things, if we go into 10 different directions at our very early age, then how could I have the pretension of asking anyone to know and understand what a Serica watch is? So it's obviously for us to send a message out there. This is our proposition. This is a Serica watch. This is what we do. But then you know, and I know that a message gets lost in translation in the process, and like you can send 100 and maybe 10% will get to you. So I need to make sure that I don't send too much because I want this message to be extremely relevant and clear. And as a designer, if I mean, my approach to design is extremely purpose driven, as you might have understood. And if tomorrow you ask me, or today, because today's the day, if you ask me any question about the relevance and the reason of any hundredths of a millimeter of one of my watches, if I do not have an obvious, clear answer, then that would turn me into a very sad person. So I try to think about our lineup as something that will last in time. Not if you like watches did. I mean, they evolved, but they did not change. For anyone who bought a Serica field watch 5 years ago, they still own very much a Serica field watch. Of course, it's now we have a few dial variations. The cases evolved slightly. It's now automatic, chronometer certified. It's thinner. It's the material evolved. It changed, but it's not a different watch. I don't have any here, but if you put them side by side, it's still very much a Serica watch, and that's what I'm trying to create. A design language that will last in time and is easy to understand. And it's taking off slowly.
I mean, it feels like your watches are literally like pulled from a time machine,
That's a
and
great.
dropped in modern, modern day, So in theory, you're inspired by timeless design and you're creating timeless watches. So in theory, your watches have already been out there for 50 plus years. Your designs. In
Yeah,
theory.
of course. But and it's I mean, obviously, it would be extremely cocky and pretentious. Yeah, I built something tiny. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Sure.
But
Yeah, of
if you
course.
do not design with the ambition of creating something truly special and truly timeless, it does not happen by mistake. It's a magical thing, but it just doesn't happen by itself. You need to be self-aware, I think, as a designer, that every choice you make will have an impact on the life of your watch. And we created the company 5 years ago with Gabriel, but designing designing watches and owning my own watch company and offering what I do believe is a great watch has been on my mind for the longest time. And I started designing drawing watches when I was 12, 13, 14 years old.
Wow.
So fast forward 20 years later, when I finally had the guts and the right associates to do so, I did take it very seriously, and I still do. Creating something to me is truly a responsibility. It's funny. My brother just bought me a book recently, and it's a small book about like do design, why beauty is key to everything by Alan Moore, I think. And by reading the book, I was, yeah, obviously, I mean, the drunk conversation I have with my friends. But it is, I mean, beauty is key to everything. And as a designer, your responsibility is to bring to life an object of beauty. Of course, we're talking micromechanics, we're talking purpose-driven instruments, but it still needs to be a thing of beauty. And when you put that into people's lives, starting with mine, it makes the world a little bit of a better place. I don't want to flow into something too philosophical out there, but that's the very reason why it's not just a tool watch. It's much more than that. I of course I'm still a 15-year-old kid deep down wanting to be James Bond. Of course, when I put my watch on the wrist in the morning, I feel a bit more like it. People will find it funny probably, and then I hop on the metro and I go to work. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's the idea. A mechanical watch it's not something that will save our lives. It's something very. It's not. I don't want to say it's outdated, but it's not the instrument it used to be. Obviously. So why do we wear watches? Because it
For
brings us joy,
yeah,
makes us
exactly.
makes us happy, maybe reminds us of a time where internet was not so much
life
present.
was simpler, you know?
Probably
And
much simpler.
it's an expression of individuality at this point, you know?
It is. It is. It is.
And
So
and yeah, you know, something that I've noticed too, I mean, is just the small details that you can clearly tell, like when I've been wearing the diver, um I mean, just the way that the bracelet's designed, I mean, it's super comfortable. But
thank you.
then you have the high polish chamfer on the lugs, and then
Hmm.
it goes straight down to like a brushed gradial pattern,
Hmm.
like right to where the bracelet meets. And I was like, you know, that's just it's just clean. It's just unique. It's refreshing. You know, I mean, you everybody who's listening, you have to get hands on with one of these things to see what I'm talking about. But you know, you can tell like just the everything was thought out. And
That a rather obsessive mind did the work.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, we're all obsessed. I'm obsessed.
Touche. Touche.
Yeah, I'm the sickest person you'll ever meet. I have over 150 watches in my personal collection.
Ooh,
Um,
that's a lot.
I'm curious about. So Gabriel and I had talked briefly about the transition to Soprod,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We didn't talk too much about the reason behind it, but it was
Hmm.
my understanding that you guys started off and now, I mean, now you're all in on the Soprod train.
Yeah, yeah. So the reason is rather simple, really. So when we started the company 5 years ago, it was a first original batch of 500 watches, and you're no one. 500 watches. You cannot even knock the door of ETA or
Yeah,
so proud. If I go, who are you? I don't know you. Okay, you will have your movements in a year or two. And obviously, we were rather inexperienced with the manufacturing of mechanical watches. So we purchased actually from friends who had another brand. We purchased a batch of 500 ETA 2801 movements, and we started working with that. But then at the very end of the very same year, ETA, which is part of Swatch Group, announced, "Sorry guys, not selling to anybody outside the Swatch Group." So it didn't
yeah,
really help, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
then we worked briefly with STP as well, which is part of the Fossil Group in Switzerland. And it did work, don't get me wrong. But partnering with someone, it's obviously about what they can offer and the quality of the product, but it's also about relationship, about
Sure.
how you get along with the human people behind it and how easy and nice it is to work with them. And we did meet the Soprod team and their owner, Mr. Rodriguez, which is a very nice guy who appreciates very much what we do and having Soprod caliber housed in Serica watches. And working with them, it's been a breeze. And it truly felt like partners, not just a provider. Meaning when something goes wrong, they're here to help and we work together. And that I like very much. And the caliber we used in the entire collection right now is the M100. So it's a caliber that's been around for a long time. It was previously named the A10, A10-2, then evolved like many evolution until the M100. But the bottom line is this movement is great for many reasons, in my opinion. It's chronometer certified, it's automatic. It's been around for 20 plus years, so it's reliable. And most importantly, when you design sports watches, you want something that's tough, that's reliable. You want a workhorse of a movement, especially for us. I mean, we go with the elaborate finishing, then Côte de Genève and everything, but we have solid case back, so it doesn't. You can't see the movement anyway. So this is not a Westminster carry-on. It's just a workhorse of a mechanical movement. And the M100 is thinner than most. Meaning, if you take any 11 and a half lines movements, that's the diameter, right, on the caliber.
Right, right, right.
That's what is used usually for sports watches. And if you go to ETA or if you go to Serica, these movements will be 4.6 millimeter thick. If you take the M100, it's 3.6 millimeter thick only. And 1 full millimeter in watchmaking, it's a mountain, actually,
Sure.
when you do design everything around the movement. So it allowed us to work on three different directions for the three collections that you have in hand. obviously, it started with, I discovered the M100 when we did the GMT, because the M100 is the base caliber for the C125. So it's basically M100 with the GMT module on top of it. And even with the module, it still enabled me to design a 12.3 millimeter thick GMT watch, which I enjoyed very much because it made for very, very pure and very sleek case profile. And then I was, wait. What happens if I put this in a diver? So it was not an easy thing because, you want to keep the same case, well, the same thickness. You don't want to make it any thicker. You need the crown to remain perfectly centered. And I was like, but can I work on an anti-magnetic cover? And it still took us time. I mean, people don't realize, oh, there's new movement and there is but it's a lot of work. I mean, I did those technical drawings maybe 10 times, sending them to the guys, because I'm not an engineer.
Sure.
I'm the poet with the pen.
Yeah, yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
That's who I am. So it still goes back to guys who tells me this we can do, this we cannot do, and 9 times they told me we cannot do, and the 10th said, what about we do that and that and that? I can be rather persistent, and I was like, okay, this works. And so we could manage by keeping the 12.2 millimeter thick case to add the magnetic cover. But it's not just the cover, right? It's the cover, it's the inner case ring, and the dial itself that are now manufactured in what we call, people call it soft iron, but it's or mu metal. It's basically iron and nickel.
Yeah, it's like a blend.
Yeah, exactly. And for the new 6190, we transition as well. And it was like, whoa, what can we do because obviously when you already offer automatic Swiss chronometers for your dive watch and GMT, I mean, having a mechanical hand wound field watch in the mix, it's still beautiful, but it doesn't make much sense. We said it earlier. I like the message to be clean and relevant. So it's like, okay, now it's time for the field watch to get the COSC treatment in a way. And this movement being thinner, we could actually add the rotor, upgrade to the new M100 caliber, and still manage to chop down almost an entire 1.5 millimeters of the case profile, including the crystal. So we dropped down from 11.8 down to 10.4 millimeter thick. And I mean, you have it on the other side of the screen. So
Yeah.
you can tell people, you put it on the wrist and it's a 200 meters water resistant watch. It's a beautiful watch and it's super thin. So it's, again, it embodies everything I love about watches, the robustness and the elegance.
Yeah, something that I've noticed, and obviously before Wind Up San Fran this past year, I hadn't had much experience or getting hands on with your products. Obviously there's a lot of great watch brands that are direct to consumer. You guys, because of your price point, I'm assuming you have no choice but to stick in that model.
For now, or invent new models. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll see.
We'll talk later about that. Um, but something that was super surprising is just how like compact I would say the package is. Um, I've noticed it very much so with the field chronometer, how it wears, how compact it is. I have a relatively, I would consider, small wrist, below seven
Okay.
inches. Um, but it still feels like it has a big personality.
It does.
And,
And
and that's something that's so different to me. Um, and obviously the way that I worked is I got the field chronometer and I got the GMT, the travel chronometer, and then after I said to Gabriel, I was like, dude, like I'm missing one watch here, like just send me another one,
yeah,
because I want to show the entire brand, the entire portfolio, and it's much more challenging to do with other brands than it is
it's
for a brand like yours, where I get 3 watches high the entire portfolio.
correct.
Um, but ever since the 5303 came in,
This one won
I
your heart.
Yeah, I haven't took the other ones out.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, 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 don't be sorry.
And I thought it would be different. Like I was like, all right, aesthetically, the 6190, the field chronometer was like the one that spoke to me. Like, okay, like
Okay.
I see it online. Like this is the perfect watch for me. Um, but then the 5303 just swooped in like overnight and put the field chronometer to sleep for me for some reason. Um, but I
They have different personalities for sure.
Yeah,
Different,
yeah, and I mean, I
very
like
different watches.
the practicality, like the hours and minutes on the bezel, like something that like I have never seen that before. Um,
It's been done before, but to my knowledge, not on two different materials. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, and just I mean the way the bracelet integrates into the case, I mean it's still compact, but it still feels like it has wrist presence, which
It does. It's but you know when it's surprisingly enough. I mean, all these watches they have different sizes, different dial openings, different strap integration. But when you put them on a wrist, I think they all have a very similar presence. Despite the fact that the field chronometer is just 37.7 millimeter wide and 10.4 millimeter thick, the other one is 39 versus 12.2. But the fact that the the ratio and the game of proportions that stay within each watch makes each time an ensemble that's very easy to wear on the wrist and with a similar presence. Again, it's a very very fragile thing.
yeah, it's something that was very apparent for me is and so I don't think we talked to I mean my background, right? I sold 30 of the most luxurious brands
Okay,
in the world, right?
okay,
And me and Justin, my partner, who's not here unfortunately,
okay,
we kind of came from we started collecting together, but we came from different sides of the industry.
okay.
Like when we got into collecting, like I was always had my sights set on like the big boys, the Pateks and
Yeah, of
all
course.
that, and JLC and Vacheron and all that. But he actually went into the micro brand space,
Okay.
and like he was like, I mean, he loves micro brands, so we kind of meet in the middle. Um, but but something that I mean is so surprising to me is the functionality. I mean, like it's simple, but it's functional, and you could tell that. In this, I don't think this is understood by a lot of designers. Like they're just like, okay, this looks good on paper,
Hmm.
right?
No, this
They're
has to
not.
feel good on the wrist. It's different.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they maybe incorporate a little bit of that, but something that was apparent to me, having a vast knowledge of watches, is you designed this watch for an archetype, for a persona. Like you had your end consumer in mind, how
Uh,
they were going to use the watch before you designed it. I could tell.
no, actually, yeah, I know people lately. They talk a lot about their persona. Who is your like? Who's a Serica man, for example? But very very honestly and very selfishly, the very first and only person I was trying and still am trying to convince when I design a watch is myself. You know, I have a rather broad watch culture myself. I used to be a watch journalist
Oh, okay.
for some time as well. So I've been, and that's how my eye got educated as well. You know, I from the early watch fairs in Switzerland at the age 14 to the auction houses at age 23 or 40 or 30. I had the opportunity and the chance to put on the wrist so many of these watches. I've seen a lot. I put a lot on my wrist. I owned a few, and that gave me the knowledge of it. That's what a proper watch should look and feel like. That's and to me, it's the only way to understand how it should feel. You know, I mean, you can learn about watches online and you read and you see pictures, but the weight of the watch, how light interacts with different finishings, how curved lugs makes the watch feel on your wrist, and so on. It's something that needs to be experienced. And you said earlier, I don't think that's something watch design, or every watch designer thinks about or is aware about. But the reality from my experience is that not every designer who gets asked to design watches is a watch designer. I mean, you said it looks good on paper, but not on the wrist. And that's something that only a watch person can know and experience and know how important it is. It's a, I don't know. It's, if I had to compare with architecture, because if it is some kind of architecture, I mean,
Sure.
we talk about the architecture of a movement of a case, and it's something of beauty. We said earlier, but it's something utterly functional in the first place. So if you can't read time in a split second, if it doesn't feel comfortable on the wrist, if it's then it's not good enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're chasing
And
greatness.
exactly. And just like, when there is one architect that I love is Ando Tadao, Japanese architect. I don't know. You probably know the guy.
No.
No, maybe you can check it up later.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
He's like he's been known for designing what appears from a distance very simple houses, concrete blocks of concrete with wooden floors sometimes. And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, sure. I mean, any 5-year-old kid can draw a square.
Sure.
But if you cannot draw the perfect square until you know everything about the Roman architecture, the Renaissance, until you stepped into a church, see how the light go through, actually step into the space, because architecture is designing a space that you feel. And it's the same for watches. I mean, that might seem simple. Yeah, of course, you put a round instead of an arrow, a circle instead of an arrow for GMT hand, sure. But it's not that easy. It's like you
Sure.
cannot do that unless you done all the work and the journey that leads you here.
Are
And
there any specific like instances or maybe design cues that like you're proud? I mean, you're clearly proud of your products, right? We see that.
I am.
Um,
I wear
is there
them with pride.
is there any like pieces that you could give us where you were like, let's just say it was like 2 a.m. You were drawing something, you had a hunch, you went with it, and you're like, oh shit, like this
This is the way.
is
Yeah,
yeah, this is perfect. Like not to toot your own horn, of course, but
yeah,
something
sure.
something from an idea that that like you're so proud of that now exists
Yeah, but
beyond the finished product.
sure, sure, sure. But and we're going to talk about the GMT again because it took me a long time to get to that GMT. I'm not a trained designer. I'm a self-taught designer.
Sure,
And my process, I cannot talk about any other designer's process,
of
but my
course.
process into creating a watch is I have a lot on my mind. I think about it a lot. And then only when I know exactly when I want to go, I start drawing. And then I start drawing, I put something on paper on the computer. And then I need to step away for a few days, sometimes a week, sometimes 2 weeks. And then I open it again. And then I see it differently. And I was like, okay, this this can be improved. This can be better. And until I step away from the design, come back to it, and I'm like a little kid with my eyes like, okay, that's going to be great. That I want on my wrist. That I see harmony in this design from the first second. It strikes me as harmonious design, and it answers every single question that needed to be answered. That's the only time, like when I have that, then I will move forward into the production of a sample, for example. And designing the GMT watch is something rather difficult because obviously Rolex did create something wow in 1954 with a very strong design language. Like we talked about it earlier again, the Pepsi orange and
Yeah.
red, blah blah blah. So it was about finding the answers. But even I, like right now, I'm bragging about, yeah, you need to go find the origin of the question. But I did not at first. And for the longest time, like I could see, like quickly, I had the idea of the 2 times 12 and the anti-meridian, post-meridian. So that appeared on my watch. I was like, that's great. It's singular. It answers the question. It's easy to read. It's great. But then the uneven split was not there from the start. The uneven split of the bezel, the day-night indicator.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I tried to do something. I wanted to do something very refined and elegant. So I was like, maybe we can just work on different finishing. Polished ceramic and circular brush ceramic could work. I tried that, but it was not not easy to read, not easy enough to read. And then I couldn't get through the fact that when you split the sixes into two parts, then you need a third color, right? Because you need something that contrasts with, for example, in our case, the black and the white. So you need to add something like Rolex did it with gray, I think. Is it gray or white with the GMT? Anyway, and I did not want to add a third color. I just wanted the dash of earthy orange for the GMT hand, but I did not want to add any because I was afraid for the watch to look quirky and to like too much information, then you don't understand. Like you miss the entire point. You don't see the ensemble. So then I was, okay, what about we do not divide the sixes? What happens? So you have the choice between making a longer day or a longer night. And we all busy men. We all live in 2024 where everything goes way too quickly. It was like, yeah, my day is much longer than my night. I look tired, I know. I don't sleep enough. Nights are short. So, okay, it's a positive thing to have a longer day segment because when you see your day on 24 hours, like I have more time. That's daylight. That's activity time. And anyway, the transition from day to night is not a switch at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. It's very subjective depending on where you live, where you reside in the world, what day of the year it is. So having an even split, if you think about it, doesn't make much sense anyway to start with. And then for the longest time, the GMT hand was an arrow. And it looked okay, but it didn't look Serica enough. And for a month, it's great, but it's not it. It's good, but it's not it. I need my own shape, but I did not want to add any quirky shape that comes out of nowhere because I'm here to build on my own design language. I'm not here to find another solution out of the blue when I need one. And after many, many weeks and months about like not seeing it, I looked at the 5303 and I saw the shape of the index linked to the minute track, those satellite hour indexes. And if you just rotate this 180 degrees, then you have a lollipop hand. So that big, broad lollipop design was already present in the 5303. And then I put it on my design and I was like, I giggled like a little child. I was like, fuck, that was it. As simple as it seems, it was here all the time and I couldn't see it. So that's a tiny little design thing that I'm very happy about for sure. Because now it looks like a Serica.
How do you see the future of the brand evolving?
Keep chasing the great, obviously. But
Okay.
my idea is to like our reason to be is to offer the Serica proposition to all the types of watches that we love. Obviously, I fell in love with watches, with tool watches. That's what made me like the instruments,
Yeah.
The James Bond watch. I'm still a kid.
Me too.
That's what got it all started, So obviously, when we started the company, you always start with what you love most. And we started with the field watch and the dive watch, the GMT. And right now, Serica obviously looks very much like a tool watch brand. And that's what we do. That's who we are. That's for sure. But in the future, obviously, I'd like to show people that Serica does not only know how to manufacture tool watches. I mean, we make sports watches because even if tomorrow we set our sails on designing a dress watch, a shaped watch, a super slim watch, I still would want this watch to be somehow waterproof, somehow life-proof in a way. But there are there's so many directions. Of course, I want I want to build women's watches, like smaller watches. I want to have a chronograph, a Serica chronograph. I'd love that.
I was gonna ask.
Dress watches. I love that too. So there's still a long way to go. Like to me, the future is already full of so many things that we can do and to build, and that still will be very Serica. Before I run out of ideas into
Yeah.
building Serica, that's a long way to go, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and something that I've noticed that maybe I haven't seen that you guys do, but a lot of other micro brands are very collaborative,
Yeah,
right? This
sure.
is, I mean, I forgive my ignorance, but I haven't seen
No,
anything like this from Serica
no,
yet. Like,
no,
is
we don't, because it's well, it's. I'm not saying that it's never gonna happen, but if it happens, it needs to be relevant. It needs to be something. It needs to make sense. That's it. To me, like, you've noticed, we're not into limited editions.
yep,
We're not into collaborations, as you said, because too often it looks to me from the outside like very, very artificial ways to drive sales and to tell people this is not going to last long. There are just a few of them. If you want one, you need to buy it quick. And that's not the way I want to sell Serica watches. Selling a watch to someone who will realize the next day, like, oh, I shouldn't have, because this watch is not wow. This watch is not offering anything special, value added. And finally, the watch is in a drawer. It goes back to the market, to the second hand. He wants to ditch it. I'm not interested in that. I want people to come to us because they find beauty. They understand the quality of our watches. They understand what is it we do, how relevant it is, and just how joyful little mechanical objects can get into their lives and keep ticking for the longest time. And once you understand that, then don't rush, because a Serica watch today will still be a Serica watch tomorrow and the day after. So there is no rush. There should be no rush into purchasing a mechanical watch anyway. It's not a t-shirt. It's not fast fashion. It's not instant gratification. It's choosing something very intimate that will remain with you for the longest time. Saying that,
yeah.
we all have more watches and wrists,
I've
obviously. But
you
I don't know.
I've never heard a watch brand say anything like that. Because they're taking I guess they want to grow as quickly as they possibly can, right?
Yeah.
And
I want
rightfully
to la-
so,
I want
without
to last.
sustainability.
I want to last long. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
want to create something truly relevant again.
and you see them kind of like dipping their paintbrush in novelty releases,
Mhm.
where they just do novelty after novelty after novelty after novelty. And what that does, I've noticed, and at least in my opinion, is it takes the attention away from their core offering.
Of course.
And yeah, it I would say more often than not, you have people purchasing watches for the wrong reasons,
Yeah.
like you said. Oh, this
Absolutely.
is limited to 250 pieces. I gotta buy it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I like it. It looks good on the internet. I'm not sure. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna buy it.
True.
And then yeah, they get it, and for whatever reason, it just it doesn't get worn. You know.
Not as appealing as in pictures, and oh, too bad. But it's yeah, it's not. I think I mean, a novelty, of course, it's a way to attract attention. When you don't have a big picture, and I was like, hey, talk about me. I'm new, I'm new. It's
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I get it, but that's not what we're trying to create at Serica at all. It's the big picture, the longest possible run. And again, if as long as I work and design something and it's not shared with the world, it's mine. I can still correct it. I can still change it. I can still, but once it's out there, there is nothing I can do. So if I put anything out there in a hurry, if I rush, and it's not exactly as good as I once envisioned, then of course I'm not going to be the only one who notices it. You will, another someone else will. And it was like, okay, Serica, they try to sell us watches.
Yeah.
And of course, I enjoy selling watches, because if I do not sell watches, the dream ends and I cannot keep on creating. And it's at the very economical game in which any entrepreneur and company owner has to face. But it doesn't give birth to the same watches or to the same anything really. If you create something, if your drive is I need to sell watches, I'll make a watch. It's not the same watch as I want to create something special and I will put it in the life of someone and it will make him happy. It's not the same, not at all. You know, I got interviewed recently by a student, and she was at business school, and she was asking me questions about like my approach, the market, the needs, blah blah blah, and I was like, the answer is the question is wrong, but I'm gonna give you my answer still.
Sure.
If you want to create something, a service, a product, anything really, do not think market. Do not think profit. Do not think like. Of course, it's part of the thing, but you cannot start with that.
Right.
Think about what will this object, how will it impact the life of someone? Because when you give life to an object, it will you make it for people, for someone that will adopt this idea, this object in his daily life. How can it impact positively his life, and why would he come to me to get it? You know, and if you think like that, you don't make the same choices because when it comes to okay, I can do that. It's cheap and I make more money. It was like whoa. What about this way? Of course, it's way more expensive, but it will be funded on the long run. What difference will it make to the final product in the life of the wearer? Oh, it will make like very simple example here. Those do you have any of those Serica sports straps? Yes, on the GMT, right?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I have it
Okay,
on. Actually, I also have it on the field watch as well.
okay. So
I don't
okay,
know.
you
I don't
can
know why
say
they sent it to me on that one. I was
I don't
looking
know.
for the bracelet on that one, but that's okay.
You don't have a bone clip?
No, I don't.
Shame. We'll
Yeah, I
fix
know.
that.
I know.
But see, like people say, okay, Serica just made a rubber strap. Yeah, sure, it's just a rubber strap. But 99% of the rubber straps out there are not of that quality.
It's a weird strap. Not weird in a bad way, but it is so thin
Yeah,
and is so comfortable
and
and
yet so
like
resistant.
yeah, like I just feel like it's so rugged. You know what I mean? Because
It is.
usually like to get that same effect like I have Panerai. Like I have a Panerai watch, and I mean my rubber strap is like 10 millimeters alone. You
Yeah,
know,
of
like
course.
thick, and yeah, it's but it also looks so unique. It looks like I don't really know how to describe it. Like because it's textured in the most unique way. Like it looks
It's trying really hard to look like leather.
okay. That
But
makes sense.
that's the idea. Like the shape of the bracelet, the heavy tapering, the grain surface, like how thin it is.
It's breathable too.
That's all stolen from leather because we wanted something extremely good looking and elegant and refined. But again, we did not invent it because Tropic Star did it in the 70s.
Sure.
But this quality nowadays is extremely hard to achieve because instead of compressed rubber, they used injected rubber, and that's what we did again. It's way more expensive, of course. It's very tough to find to have the right grain and everything, but it's the only way to be able to like to work on a strap that is
It's
that thin and
it's so
yet
tiny.
rugged and resistant. If you don't do that, it stretches and gets fragile. So that's why usually people, okay, I want to sell a strap that doesn't come back. So I'm going to do a thick a thick layer of rubber or FKM or silicone, whatever, and I'm going to make sure it's tough.
Uh,
No. And we try to think otherwise.
I also
But it's
hate when brands when they're producing their rubber straps they'll scent it with the vanilla.
yeah.
It's like and then
True.
you go around the whole day and you're smelling like vanilla on your wrist like a
Yeah,
baking show. And
correct.
it gives me the worst headache. Thank you for not doing that by the by the way.
Yeah, it's like not our thing. Not our thing.
Um, I think I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What is your favorite watch release and why? And I think I'm just going to guess that it's the 8315, the travel chronometer.
No, I mean, I obviously I love all of them because if I do not love all of them,
They're your babies.
they never get shown to you guys.
Yeah. They're your babies,
If
right? I
I'm
mean, how could how
exactly
could
so.
how
How
could you
can I
say
tell
you
you
have an
my
ugly
favorite?
child?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you my favorite song is definitely the latest. No, I could not tell that and could not say that. But for the longest time, the California dial, the field watch, has been my daily.
Perfect. Yeah.
Then the 5303 has been my watch. I'm not the kind of guy who changes watches every day or two, or every week or every month. I like to spend time with my watches. I like to create memories with these watches. Otherwise, I mean, it's not really my watch until I've been wearing it for a long time. That's how I feel. Then I wore the 5303 for the longest time as well. But year and a half, since the first prototype of this one arrived, it's been very well. Like the camera is reversed. It's a bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Here it is. It's been very much my watch, but I tend to wear garments in like earthy organic shades of browns, whites, greens. So this really goes well with most of my outfits anyway, and it got this subtle, different. I don't know. I like the H315 a lot. Plus, I get to play way too much with the 24-hour bezel. But my twin brother lives in Colombia. In-laws are in Vietnam. We work with the US a lot. My mates from university are in Japan. So, I always want to know what time it is all around the world, like calling them, working.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
to me, it's very, I don't know, but the GMT complication has always been something I've been fascinated with. Um, it's long distance traveling. It's different cultures. It's the world on your wrist, and how could that be not cool?
Yeah. 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 Um, yeah. I don't know. Like personally, I'm very fortunate that I'm able to experience your entire collection. I'm very grateful that you guys, have sent me
Of
some
course, man.
some some press watches.
That's how
Um,
the love is shared.
yeah, yeah. Something that was like a turning point for me. I mean, obviously, I've had them for a few weeks now, and hopefully, I'll have them for another few more weeks because I'm taking a trip next week, and I wanted to take the entire Serica portfolio because I'm going to a watch club meetup,
Okay,
and
sure.
so I was just gonna say everybody wants to see your brand,
Uh,
everybody
how,
wants to get
how,
hands.
how could I say no to that?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of people are gonna get to see them, and so last week I'm working on a video for Glashuta original,
Okay. Yeah, great.
and they sent me a CQ for
Yeah.
press. Right,
Mhm.
so I've got like an $11,000, $12,000 CQ diver's watch sitting there, and I have it for like 5 days or something, or like 4 days, like a
Yeah.
small period of time. But you guys have essentially sent me your entire portfolio. I'm like, here, just send it back whenever. And you would think, based upon the time I have with the CQ versus the time I have with your watches, you think logically that I would wear the CQ, right? To experience it while I
Yeah.
have a shorter period of time with it.
Yeah, of
But
course.
here I am, with the 5303, like, and I
Yeah.
just I haven't taken it off, and
That
uh,
the best compliment ever, man.
and,
Really.
and it's something that I do. I change watches all the time. Like I literally change watches because I have every dream watch. Not to toot my own horn, but
Yeah.
um, I have every little boy's dream of watches, and so I can
Congratulations.
grab any of them, at any point, and I keep everything in my safe, right? So, but there's a watch that I will sleep next to, right? And yeah, since this has came in, like it's very rare for me to wear a watch for 3 days in a row. Like it's impossible. It never happens.
This is the best. I mean, this is the ultimate test. Like way too often on forums or during conversation with watch guys, people always talk about the Grail watch, like you just did, and then, oh, that's my daily beater. And I tend to disagree the way that, okay, that's just my daily beater. No, 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 no. What's at the end of the day and the end of your life, because tomorrow we'll all get there. Like, what watch will be more important? The one you choose to wear every day, or the one you wear once a year, like at New Year? Is it the watch that your friends and your family and maybe your sons and daughters have seen you wearing during your entire life, like the most? Or is it that Grail thing that stayed at the safe? And for me, the ultimate that's what it is. I mean, I might not have every little child's dream watch in the safe, but I have a few. I have a few.
Sure, sure, sure.
And I mean, I do not feel that as they're at the safe, and I do not feel the need to. I don't feel any better wearing an old sub or an old speedy or even something like, and I do wearing these because they tick all my boxes in a way. And that's the ultimate test, because the daily beater, the so-called daily beater, is the one you pick in the morning and put on your wrist. It's the most intimate watch. It's the most important to me. So making that daily beater a real beautiful watch, it's a sentimental value is everything. But when the sentimental value applies to a real nice beautiful thing, then it's fireworks, mate. It's just it's just too
It's
good.
it's a weird feeling to me, and it's a weird thought process because so I have so many watches that are so sentimental to me. Like I have a Speedmaster that I
Yeah.
love, but I don't wear it because it's so sentimental. I know that sounds
No.
so weird to say, but that like obviously when I got married, I was like, I'm gonna I can only get married in one
Yeah.
watch, right? Like so
And
so
that
like
that was
what
a
watch?
speedy.
Yeah, that was a Speedy.
Okay.
Um, and and so yeah, like I like if anything were to happen to that watch, like I would just be devastated because
Mm.
it not only
I
was
hear
it the
you.
watch that I got married in, but it was the first luxury watch purchase that I
Okay.
made. So like I
The
had
first one.
yeah, like it was my first Grail acquisition, right? Um, and then I've just spiraled from there, like into a crazy abyss. But it's a challenging thing because I want to wear a lot of these watches that I have, but I don't want to lose that importance that comes with owning them.
Mm.
Does that make any
Ah,
sense at all? Like,
yeah, I hear you. I mean, my relation to watches is very different, obviously, because I
sure,
I
it
always
should be. I
bought
hope
what
so.
I always, but like, I mean, like there are as many different reasons to like watches as people who likes watches anyway. So it's a healthy thing. From my point of view, I never so much enjoyed owning something I do not wear. Like as a collector, some people say, "Oh, I want every single Speedmaster on the planet," and I get joy out of knowing that I have the entire collection. Why not?
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that. Some other was like, yeah, I like to go to my museum sometimes, as in the safe. I open and ooh, that's nice. I clean them. I like to wear them. I like
Sure.
to wear them. And
I
if I don't, I feel that this beauty, this instrument is kind of like wasted. No, it's
it
like
is.
it could have a very adventurous life, and it's actually already in a nursery home. That's how I feel about the watch.
It,
Of course, I would not swim and dive, and I would not travel to Brazil with a Patek. I'm not stupid neither.
sure,
But
sure,
if
sure.
yeah, I don't know. It needs to get some rest time.
I
Otherwise, it gets lonely.
yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. Um, because and that was kind of the concept like of the brand, like our brand name, right? Like no matter how many watches you have, no matter how important they are, like your wrist like can't have enough. If you're obsessed like we are, Um,
360 days tourists. That's it.
yeah, I know. I'm gonna start putting watches on my ankles and necks and stuff now. Like Rihanna and stuff. But but no, like there's I'm not just saying this because you're on the podcast, but I'm trying to expressively say what I've thought about for over a week now. How to bring to words. I knew you were coming on the podcast, and we've been planning this for a while.
Mhm.
Um, but how I could explain it to you, and I still can't. But there's something very romantic and charming and familiar uh, about your watches that I
You,
can't really place.
it's
Like,
the word you used is very interesting to me because, like, when designing the watches and when explaining it to some of my friends back in 2019, you notice how there is no sharp edges on my
yeah,
watches.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
like the warmth of the design, the dome crystal, the fonts. Even the fonts, there is no sharp angle in any fonts. And when trying to explain that back in 2019, I was telling my friends, like, yeah, because a functional instrument is not good enough. I want romance. And you said the word romantic. And like, and the romance is to me, that's what it is, because it's a very special emotion and feeling that you get out of wearing this watch. It's not just a tool that tells time. It's, of course, it is a tool that tells time, but it also carries, I don't know, a dream, an era, a story, something that is yet to be created and lived with the watch. But it's ready to take it on. It's like,
yeah.
give me memories. I can take that.
It,
It's in
if
a way. I don't know if it makes sense.
and I was explaining to my wife, because obviously she knows I'm obsessed and I'm a sick person.
I'm sure she does.
Um, but had I acquired a Serica sooner, like it probably would have saved me a lot of money, um,
I,
because I'm like piecemealing these little designs that I like from this, okay, I like the Panerai, I like the Arabic, the loom, like the sub-second, boom, I like the crown guard, and then okay, I like the date just, I have a date just with the fluted bezel jubilee and the cyclops and the green Romans, the Wimbledon, and like um and so I find little things that I appreciate about watches, but there's never like after I wear a watch, like I don't generally get full. You know what I mean? Like
okay.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
bring that to
It's not like you get like, after a while it fades, like the emotion kind of fades. It's
yeah.
what you're trying to say, or
It's like here in America, right? Like once a year, like you go to Thanksgiving, right? And you stuff your face, and you don't move for like 2 days. You just you plop down, you sleep in the same place that you fell into. Um, and so all the watches that I own are like snacks,
okay.
like I'll
Like,
pick up a snack because I want to feast, I want to put, I want to eat a little something, right?
I hear you.
But but something that's weird, and I can't believe I'm comparing your watch to a meal.
Please
Um,
do.
but no, like I feel like full, when I'm wearing, I mean, specifically the 5303. Um, because like I said, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It satisfies me in multiple different ways that I haven't been satisfied before. Especially
It's
like the way the bracelet integrates to the case, like, and just the comfort of the bracelet. I mean the bezel. I mean it's just so good. Um,
we
and and yeah, I mean the case architecture, like how robust it feels while still being a compact package,
Yeah.
arguably.
It's
And yeah, I don't know.
But
So
it's so, no,
that's
no,
my
it's,
rant.
and no, but I'm the I'm the worst at like making comparisons most of the time. And so I've I must have said way worse than comparing the watches to a meal myself. So don't worry about that one bit. And again, it's coming back to what we said earlier. Beauty. It's, it's like beauty in when an object of beauty is a work of love. It starts from a vision, it starts from a will, and then it's like doing your homework and doing the work like till the very end, till you're very satisfied in each and every tiniest little detail that will compose the entire thing. And again, it's like we're talking watches, obviously, but it works just as well for a meal. You want a beautiful meal, or you want a crap one? You want a beautiful relationship or an ugly one? It's the same thing, really. It comes back to beauty because those values, this I don't know, this love, it's that's what has been put into the design, into the watches, into the brand, into everything that we're trying to get out there. And I'm happy that people feel it and see it, because it's my job to think about all these tiny little details. It's my job to choose and that to send the message out there. But there is absolutely no guarantee that it will be understood, because it's so intangible. I mean, obviously the design choices are tangible, but what's behind the intention behind it, it's it's into thin air. It's not printed on a page. It's just something that is felt. We talked about the romance earlier. The fact that people can feel that, and the fact that it echoes louder and louder, and that this nuance, these like subtle little things, because a Serica watch is not a loud watch, that it's recognized in a way. I mean, it makes me really, really happy. It's and right now we've been doing not collaborations, but I met so many amazing people since we started Serica, people that I would have never met otherwise, for sure. We we make watches for the U.S. Secret Service in Paris. We did watches for École de Guerre. We're working on some special projects. But the fact that those guys from like intelligence agencies and high-end government like protection departments, they see that, I mean, when I design a watch, again, we're going back to James Bond, but that's who I wanted to be as a child. And I was like, yeah, what would James Bond wear today? If you want to impersonate like elegance within action, you don't think Jason Bourne, you think James Bond, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to convey with the watches as well. For the fact that these guys, I did not knock at any door. I did not go there trying to sell them my watches. They all came into the shop. I was like, that's what we want. That's what we want. So it's kind of a full circle, and it's great. I couldn't be happier about that. Really.
What watch do they wear? Like which one sells the best in the intelligence community?
Secret Service is the 5303.
Okay.
École de Guerre with the 6190, but that's also a matter of how can I say, the École de Guerre. It brings together the Air Force, the Navy, and the police force, kind of. So you cannot choose a chronograph or a dive watch. It needs to work with all the corps. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And going back to James Bond, do you think James Bond would wear the 5303? If
I think he should.
Okay.
No, I think he totally would. I mean, it's a tool watch. It's a proper instrument, and it's very, very elegant. The sub he used to wear, that's what it used to be,
Yeah, he's been wearing a lot of Seamasters recently too.
Yeah, but I'm not talking partnerships with brands
Sure.
who originated He started with Pierce Brosnan and Omega, if I'm correct.
Yep,
but I'm talking before. I mean,
yeah.
In the books, I don't know if you read the books, but in the books it's a Rolex, but it's not a sub. No. In the books it's a Datejust.
Really? I thought it was a Submariner.
No. Then in the movies he's wearing a Submariner, and then Submariner it remained because those guys, they love the Submariner. I don't know if you heard the story about George Lazenby popping into the casting to become the next James Bond after Sean Connery, and the guy he bought a Rolex because of James Bond, and he showed up at the casting with his own personal watch. it was a Rolex. So that's the power of such a timeless character that still make every little boy fantasize about his life.
Yeah. Well, we are encroaching nearly a short feature film here. So let's start to try and button things up. Two questions that I will leave you with.
Sure.
Um, Obviously, the future for Serica is bright.
We
I'm a
hope
huge
so.
fan. I'm a huge
We'll work.
fan.
We'll keep working for
Um,
that. Sure.
how, if you could paint a perfect picture of the next decade of your brand, I'm sure you have milestones that you want to accomplish. If you
Sure.
would, share some of those with us, that would be amazing.
What we would love to see, and it's not only me, it's also Gabriel and the people we
Sure.
work with. I mean, right now we have a brand that stands by itself with a narrow lineup of wonderful watches. Right now we have only one boutique in Paris, and we sell watches online, obviously worldwide, but not so many people, as you said, have the opportunity to feel the watches in the metal and pop them on the wrist. And I think it's a shame. So in the next decade, yeah, if I was to see Serica boutiques worldwide where people can actually get in, here's a story, spend a good moment, get to know firsthand and see and touch and feel the wonderful watches that are yet to be created, that would be a very bright future for us, for sure. And it's not so much about I want to make more watches. No, it's
Sure.
I want to share the love with more and more people because, of course, there are a lot of relevance in this offering into what we're trying to create. But most future Serica owners do not know the brand just yet. So I think the next decade and the next, like, it's about keeping working equally hard in order to keep on producing, like staying true to our vision, basically, and never to compromise with this. But then also to make the world know more about Serica watches, and that will go through making them actually be able to see the watches for real, for sure.
Final question, and we touched on a lot. I mean, I think as of now, we understand your design philosophy. We understand what powers you. You're fueled by creativity, perfection, and yeah. So we touched on a lot. We've been having great success where essentially we turn our platform over to you, right? And so we touched on a lot. Is there anything you feel like we did not talk about that you want the listener, the audience, the customer to know that we did not talk about?
Interesting. Not really, because as you said, we covered a lot, and you've been a great host in the way that you pass the ball and that you let me speak. So maybe sometimes I did not answer exactly your question, but I did say what I wanted to share with the audience. No, we covered it's very important for me to share the very reason why we do things, because that's how you understand more. Like a watch, like anything else, is only understood by the knowledge you had of it. Like, of course, you have the first visual contact with it. I like it, I do not like it. But sometimes, like, I don't really like it, but maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I don't understand it. And then when you know the reason why it was born this way, or what fueled the creative process that gave birth to such a thing, then you start liking it. I don't know if you're into music as well. Or
Oh
do you
yeah,
like
yeah.
music? Okay.
Music, film, all that.
Oh, that great. If sometimes you hear something and it can be powerful, and then you learn about historical context, about biographical detail that makes you understand. And then you hear something else. And the example I usually take when I'm at the boutique with people, it's and it happened to me, for the longest time, because my dad was and still is a really a big jazz fan. I was fed with jazz music from my earliest days, and it's a music I still listen to a lot these days. And so I used to listen to Billie Holiday, for example, and Lester Young. And you can listen to My Men, and it's a great tune, and you can hear suffering, you can hear it's like plaintive. It's very deep. It's very powerful. And then, like, where did it come from? Is she just like a great interpreter? Like, what did she go through? And then you learn about her life, and then you learn about the relationship she had with Lester Young, which is the very guy blowing the horn in the back when she sings "My Man." And then you hear something else entirely. So I think, back to the watches, I like seeing a Serica watch online as, okay, it's pretty, fine. And then you get to learn what's behind the passion that was fueled into a watch, the work that was necessary to achieve something as great in the metal that it once was in my little head. And when you know all that process, I think you see something differently. It's not just, oh, it's quirky, oh, it's different, oh, I don't know. It was like, it can turn that into, oh, but it actually makes sense. And that's the reason why it's important to tell the story, I think. Oops, sorry.
That's why we do it. I mean, that's exactly why we do it. When I sold watches, like you can go into a Vegas boutique because I live in Las Vegas,
Okay.
and you get a very atypical experience. Oh, well, this watch has 300 meters of water resistance. It's a 40 millimeter case. It's got super luminova, and it's $7,000, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And beyond that, um, it it doesn't do the consumer any. It's like it's just like a white sheet, right? Like you can go online and look at your favorite car and see, oh, it's got this size engine, it's got that. Uh, but until you drive it, like
You don't know.
and you do get a lot of driving, at these boutiques, right? Getting hands on, but a lot of the stories about cars get lost within the manufacturer, right? Because the manufacturing processes are so vast, they're so complex, right? I mean, I can't interview like the owner of Audi, like the original owner, like the
Yeah, of
original
course.
out, like
Long gone,
or
mate. Long gone.
yeah, 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 so we want to encapsulate the future of the watch industry while we can. We want to bring, I mean, ideally, if a future Mozart, speaking of music, will be on our podcast, right? Like
Yeah.
we can, cement this in culture, right? And so understanding why you do it, why you exist, why you're unique, like how your approach is different, like seeing your passion, seeing your creativity, getting to experience that with you
Mm.
through outlets like ours is very important to us.
And to us, big time,
Yeah.
big time. No, no, I mean, it's true. It's a true opportunity and a true chance because I obviously not everybody get the chance to travel to Paris and
Mm.
meet up in the boutique and get a chat and have a coffee and see the watches. So, giving us the opportunity to deliver our message and explain why it is that we are doing things. It's Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. That is the best note we can end on right there. Thank you so much.
My
So
absolute pleasure, man.
I
Thanks for
wish
having me.
Gabriel could be here too, because it would be a fun little
And
trio here. And again,
so
thank you so much for coming on,
he's covering at the
everybody.
store right now.
Yeah, that's okay. Of course, we will link Serica in the podcast description. We have a ton of content that we're looping Serica in on. Hopefully, that'll be out by the time you guys are listening to this. And wear your watches. And if you have a
Yeah,
Serica, wear that.
you can try. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Cheers, man.
Everybody, thank you so much. Bye bye.